What's going on, YouTube? Bacon here, bringing you another video. This one going to be my Week 8 battle for the VPL. This week we are taking on Don, coach of the Electabuzz Lightyear. I believe this is only the second time we've played Don in VPL history. In Season 1 we didn't actually get a chance to play, just didn't end up having each other on the schedule there. And then Season 2 we played late in the season when I really needed a W to make playoffs, and we managed to pick up a win there. I believe it was either 2 or 3-0 in my favor. And then Season 3 Don took off, so we didn't actually get to play then either, of course. But here we are again in Season 4, playing for the second time, and Don, I believe, is coming into this game at 2-5, so pretty much out of it as far as the playoff race is concerned. He's had a pretty rough start to the year for sure, and of course we're coming in at 6-1, looking to secure a playoff spot for ourselves. With a win, we actually do clinch a playoff spot in this game, so let's get right into the matchup here. Don's got available the Superior, Volcanion, Galvantula, Cloyster, Durant, Alolan Exeggutor, Mega Diancie, Alolan Ninetales, Azelf, Linoon, and Weezing. So pretty standard Don team here. We got Veil plus setup with things like Cloyster and Linoon, and of course the Alolan Ninetales setting Veil. Could run like Calm Mind or Rock Polish Diancie if he wants to go that route. I feel like Calm Mind might make a little more sense than Rock Polish in this instance if he wanted to go that way. But obviously I do have a Mega Aggron that can help slow that thing down a little bit. The Galvantula is actually a pretty big threat to me just offensively. Webs aren't a huge problem for my team, but speed-wise and like combination of typing-wise, it actually hits pretty hard versus my team. So that thing's actually a pretty big threat. Volcanion's a really big threat. I don't have good ways of knocking that thing out, and it's pretty difficult to stop it from claiming a Mon, especially considering I didn't bring the Hydreigon, which I believe it's the only thing on my team that resists its dual stab besides Vaporeon. He could run like a subtoxic variant of Volcanion. That would be really annoying for me to deal with if he's running like subtoxic dual stab. That could really start to affect my Vaporeon later in the game, so definitely have to keep that in mind as a potential set you could be running. You could also be running Z-Grass with the Solar Beam on Volcanion. That's something I have to watch out for as well. His Z users are the Volcanion, Weezing, and Linoon, of course, so yeah, that's a couple of things I was looking at. One nice thing about his team is he really doesn't have a very strong defensive backbone. It's pretty much HO setup type mons on his team, so if I can get a little bit of an advantage, some momentum going, I can really start chipping through his team with things like my Victini, etc., and just throwing off some big strong hits. Tornadus doesn't have a whole lot of Z Fly resist on the other side of the field, so I can drop a Hurricane on him, a Z Hurricane at some point during the game. So I can definitely put a lot of offensive pressure on his team. I just need to get myself into the right situations to be able to accomplish that. So, yeah, let's get straight into my team builder here. This week was kind of an interesting build because, like I mentioned, his team doesn't have much of an offensive backbone or defensive backbone, but my team's not like particularly offensive itself, so I can take advantage of that to some extent, but as well it's going to be kind of difficult for me with my more kind of bulky oriented team, especially to not get swept by the Cloyster actually is going to be a huge threat this game. So let's get right into what I built here. We're starting off with Ron Swanson, Mega Aggron, running Stealth Rock, Roar, Brick Break, and Heavy Slam, max HP, max Spadef, very standard Mega Aggron spread. This is basically my best check to the Diancie, even though I'm sure he'd be running Earth Power to hit my Aggron, so in general, still should be able to take 2 Earth Powers, I think, from the Diancie, if I'm not mistaken, with the max Spadef investment. Obviously, Heavy Slam's going to be OHKOing that thing. Brick Break is there to get rid of the Veil if his Ninetales sets it up and then he tries to get out to like his Cloyster to set up for free or whatever. Brick Break should be able to get rid of the screens. And then Roar is just to phase out something like Linoon if I can't allow it to set up, if I can't allow Cloyster to set up. I do have the Roar option there. Heavy Slam's obviously not doing a whole lot back to Cloyster, so Roar is just nice to phase around his setup sweepers, and of course Stealth Rock really put the hurt in on his team. He's got a lot of Stealth Rock weak Pokemon. He's got 2 4-time Steel resists, so Aggron here I think will be pretty good this match. It's also a good check to his Alolan Ninetales as well. Next up here we've got Bird Brain the Tornadus, running Flyname Z Tornadus with Hurricane, U-Turn, Hidden Power Steel, and Taunt. Hidden Power Steel is there to hit specifically the Diancie and the Alolan Ninetales. Hurricane into Hidden Power Steel will 2-hit KO both of those things. Hidden Power Steel, I believe, after Stealth Rock damage, might actually KO the Diancie from that range. So HP Steel is just really nice to have on there. It could be a situation where his Mega Diancie's in and it's not Mega'd yet. In that case, I wouldn't stay and click the HP Steel, because if he decides not to Mega, he's going to blow me away with a Diamond Storm, and I obviously won't knock him out with an HP Steel with that additional bulk on there. So Taunt's just there to really just stop him from setting up if I can't let him again. So things like the Cloyster, I can stop him from shell smashing, and stop the Linoon from belly drumming unless he's running Z-belly drum Linoon. But at least I do have some answers to that in the back, and of course, the taunt is also nice to help shut down things like his Azelf from setting up Stealth Rocks. He does like to leave like a Focus Sash Azelf, I've noticed, with Stealth Rock into Explosion, which could be a problem for me. Obviously, if he just goes for a raw Explosion, he's going to blow away my Tornadus. But I do want to keep Stealth Rocks off the field myself this game, even though I do need to get them up with my Aggron. And I'm not running Defog this week, so I really need to make sure that he can't get Stealth Rocks up, or if he does, it's late enough in the game that's not really going to impact my game state at all. Yep. Next up here is V's Up the Victini, running Choice Scarf Victini this week with Blue Flare, Psychic, Thunderbolt, and U-Turn. I went with Special just because I really didn't like the V-Crate drops in this game, and I can get the KOs that I need to with Blue Flare anyways, things like the Superior, the Galvantula, even the Cloyster are definitely going to go down to a Blue Flare. Cloyster's Spit F stat is non-existent, so that's another good reason to run Special on Victini this week. Cloyster can take a Scarf V-Crate, but it certainly cannot take a Scarf Blue Flare, or a Scarf T-Bolt for that matter, if I don't want it to set up on me. Turning around is just really nice for initiative. I can force out things like the Superior, things like the Galvantula. He definitely has to be worried about Choice Scarf on my Victini, and if the Diance's chip down enough into range of my Psychic later in the game, I can potentially clean the late game Psychic Sweep on the Victini. Definitely something I could see happening, especially if I've got rocks up to break his sashes, any sashes, and then also if the Azelf is gone at that point in the match. So Scarf Victini I felt like was pretty nice this week, and I already mentioned a little bit of behind my rationale for running Special over Physical this week. Next up here is Grace the Vaporeon, running Leftovers Vaporeon with Wish, Protect, Roar, and Scald. Pretty standard Vaporeon set. Max HP, max Biz Def. This is my main response to the Cloyster. The only thing that's going to knock me out at +2 is Explosion, so at the very least, I'd be trading Vaporeon for Cloyster, which I will happily do. So I definitely need to keep the Vaporeon healthy. Unfortunately, it's also my best check to his Volcanion, and like I mentioned, he could be running like a Subtoxic variant of Volcanion. At least I can roar that thing out, because normally Vaporeon really can't touch Volcanion anyway, so at least I can roar that thing out and prevent him from subbing in my face, but if he does start to get Toxic off on me, I obviously don't have Heal Bell, so I'm going to need to keep this Vaporeon as healthy as possible to help deal with that Cloyster, but otherwise it's definitely going to need to come in on the Volcanion at some point during the match. Next up here is Roserade, not a waifu, the Roserade, running a Black Sludge, Natural Cure, Toxic Spikes, Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, and Synthesis. Natural Cures there because I'm not running anything that would get Technician boosted anyway, so might as well be able to heal off status if he burns me with something like, I don't know, does he even have a Scald user on this team? He could potentially paralyze me with Thunder from a Galvantula, he could Steam Eruption burn me with Volcanion, something like that. Yeah, there's a couple ways he could get status onto me, I guess. The Wheezing could potentially burn me with Will-O-Wisp, so a couple good things that Roserade could come in on there. He doesn't have a grounded poison type on this team because Wheezing does have the Levitate, so Toxic Spike should be there to stay until he defogs it or Rapid Spins with Cloyster, which Rapid Spin and Cloyster is just really not that good. But Toxic Spike's really, really nice to whittle down his team, specifically things like the Volcanion, especially if he's running Sub-Volcanion. I really want to get that Toxic Spike up and start to wear him down. Also, Sub-Seed type of Superior. Toxic Spike is going to be really nice to help wear that thing down as well. Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb actually hit his team pretty hard as far as just running dual stab goes. This is something I could definitely see sacking just to get some damage off on the Volcanion. Sludge Bomb should still do over half to that thing, because I am running some special attack investment with max HP. So I should still be able to do a good chunk of damage to that thing, and Synthesis is just to keep me healthy over the course of the match against things like the Galvantula. If Toxic Spikes are up, then Synthesis plus the T-Spike damage that he'd be taking would be really, really nice chip for me over the course of the match, just to potentially set up for late game Scarf Victini sweep, or a late game Scarf Rotom sweep, as we see coming up here in a second. So last up here we have Casper the Rotom, running Choice Scarf Rotom with Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, and Text. So running the dual Scarfers this week. Like I mentioned, his team is pretty HO, so he outspeeds a lot of my Mons in the first place, so I felt like I kind of had to make up for the speed deficiency there with the Rotom and the Victini both being scarfed. Rotom is also immune to Sticky Webs because I do have Levitate, so if he does get up Sticky Webs with his Galvantula, at least I'll have a Choice Scarfer that can still check things like the Linoon in the back. This is a great check to Linoon because he obviously can't Extreme Speed me, so I can just Volt Switch out into Thunderbolt to knock that thing out. If I have to sack a Mon or two to stop getting swept from Linoon, at least I have this kind of safety blanket in the back with the Rotom. The dual stab is really all I need again to hit his team. Volt Switch plus Thunderbolt does the job versus things like Cloyster, things like the Volcanion. I can really Volt Switches around his team pretty freely because I don't believe he actually has a ground type, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, no electric immunities on the team either, so Volt Switch is pretty free unless he's running a Choice Scarf for himself. And I can just kind of spam that all over his team, get some good chip damage off, and try to clean late game. Hex is kind of neat on there as well because I do have the T-Spike, and a lot of his team is grounded, so everything's kind of grounded late in the game. I can just start spamming Hex at him, and it's a base 130 power move when your opponent's statused, so Hex could potentially put in some work. I am Modest Rotom as well to get a little bit of extra damage output since its special attack stat's not great in the first place, but like a Modest Hex versus Toxic thing is still going to do a good chunk of damage, and obviously I'll be outspeeding his entire team, bar Choice Scarfers and Setup on. So yeah, that's the squad this week. Hopefully we don't get swept by Linoon. Hopefully we don't get swept by Cloyster was kind of the plan going into the game, because I felt like straight up I could win this match, but if he happens to get some setup going with the Cloyster or the Linoon, it could be potentially problematic for me. And yeah, let's get right into the match here. So as you can see on your screen, Don brought the Cloyster, Diancie, Alolan Exeggutor, Azelf, Volcanion, and Weezing. So a couple things. I'm very glad to not see the Galvantula. That thing, like I mentioned, was actually a big problem for me to switch into in general, and the Sticky Webs could be potentially a little bit annoying for things like my my Victini and my Roserade. But very glad to not see the Galvantula. Not so happy to see the Alolan Exeggutor, actually. Trick Room Alolan Exeggutor could really put a number in on me. Thankfully, he can't be Z if he's running Trick Room, but he could potentially get him on off with a Trick Room Alolan Exeggutor here, so I definitely have to watch out for that. Azelf, I'm pretty sure, is going to be his lead here. Like, I don't even know I've seen him lead with anything besides Azelf, that maybe Galvantula once or something. And without the Galvantula here, I really can't see him leading anything besides the Azelf. So to counter lead that, I'm going to lead off with my Tornadus here. And turn one, we've got a kind of an interesting play here because, like I mentioned, I think this is probably Focus Sash Azelf, as he's been running, or known to run, throughout the season. He's been just getting up Stealth Rocks, then going for the Explosion the following turn. So what I'm going to do here is just go straight for the taunt, prevent him from getting up Stealth Rocks, and he goes right for the Explosion. So there goes my Tornadus as he goes for Explosion. You know, turn one, not such a huge loss, but Tornadus did kind of just get a kill with Z Hurricane into HP Steel, unfortunately. So having that thing be gone is kind of unfortunate. But you know, what are you going to do? He booms turn one, he booms turn one. So there goes my Tornadus. Probably a good trade on his end, getting rid of my Tornadus, but at least the Azelf is gone. That means Scarfic Teeny Sweep in the back is looking like it's got potential with Psychic. Could definitely do it late game if things are chipped down. The Volcanion will need some damage on it. Weezing might need a tiny bit, and then Alolan Exeggutor and Diancie will need some chip damage. But if I can get up Stealth Rocks, that can potentially secure me the chip damage that I need going forward. So what I'm going to do here is actually go right out into my Mega Aggron, predicting him to go into his Diancie itself. Just because I really don't want him to bring in Diancie and then I have to switch into Mega Aggron before I'm Mega'd and stuff like that, so... and I really like to get up Stealth Rocks against pretty much anything else, so... If Diancie does come out here, which is great for me, I can just go straight for a Heavy Slam and blow this thing away, as he goes for the Mega, and I'm also going to go for my Mega here. But this is kind of where I looked at his team, and then I realized something, like, all of a sudden. It's that Don loves Explosion, right? And, Don is out of the playoffs at this point as well, right? So, what's he gonna do here with a potential Explosion Mon? You guessed it. Don is about to explode on me, yet again. So, Diancie comes out here, Explosion. Surprise. It's a meme team. Don brought a meme team to probably the last game we're gonna get to play against each other in the VPL. Don brought a meme team. He brought Explosion on everything. He's got Explosion on Azelf, Explosion on Volcanion. You know, when I looked at the team off the bat, I was like, huh, it's kind of weird, there's no Galvantula. And, like, maybe I slightly registered that they all had Explosion, but I didn't register. Like, I didn't think he'd actually do it. The absolute madman would actually run Explosion on all of his Mons. And, yeah, that's exactly what he did. He ran Choice Band Explosion on all these Mons. Except one. Except one did he run Explosion, not run Explosion on. So, you're going to see here in a second, the Alolan Exeggutor comes out. I'm like, if that's a real Cloyster, like an actual setup Cloyster, I could just lose because I can't roar it out and it can set up an Aggron's face. So what I actually do is go hard Rotom, predicting, of course, the Explosion. on the Alolan Exeggutor, as Cloyster is gonna have to come out afterwards. And it turns out it was a real Cloyster, so it's a good thing I made that play, because I actually potentially could have lost at the time. It was just Shell Smash, standard skill link Cloyster, and he was running King's Rock, so if he flinched my Vaporeon after getting +2 with the Shell Smash, I actually would have lost. So it's a good thing I wrote him there, I guess, but leave it to Don to go out on a 6-turn game here, and you know, that's one of the weirdest ways you could have to secure a playoff spot, but it happened, and now we're in the playoffs, which I guess is good. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry it was obviously a very short game, but appreciate you guys stopping by if you did, and hopefully tune in next week, because next week is not a meme game, so we're playing Jeff actually next week for a pretty important playoff seeding match going forward, so hope you guys tune in for that one, and I hope you enjoyed watching Don blow up all of his Pokemon. Yeah, later.